So impose a Peruvian tax on the federal government by making them liable.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
My name is Catherine Dr. Esperanza, the director. I'm testifying on the detention facility impact fee to emphasize that this ordinance is not what the community needs or is asking for. We will accept nothing less than having the Fort Worth ICE facility shut down and the permit for the building revoked. Every day, my loved ones live in fear of stepping outside their homes and being kidnapped without due process. Live in fear of being dragged into vans just because they're Latino. Live in fear of being deported to a country that they don't know or remember or have safety and supports in. And I live in fear every day that today will be the day my loved ones, who are my whole world, live in fear that they will be disappeared without notice, without due process, and without reason. And I'm scared to even share this testimony out of fear for my loved ones. I also work and live in District 4 where the ICE facility is located. The facility is affecting businesses, residents, and co-workers who are scared to come into work. Utilizing this ordinance fee, which does not apply to the ICE facilities permit anyways, will do nothing to address our concerns. We say the impact fee will avoid shifting the cost to the community, but it does nothing to address the costs that immigrant families and residents live in face. They say that we need the facility to do check-ins, yet we know that ICE is not operating in good faith during those check-ins and is kidnapping community members when they report to the facility. We may say that immigrants need to do things the right way, yet this administration continues to take away things like TP and supports people when they try to do things the right way. So City Council members, please support legislation to shut down the facility. Please revoke the ICE permit.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hello, City Council. My name is Jordan Lewis. I'm a registered lobbyist for Portland DSA, and I prepared a testimony for tonight that is going to hopefully persuade a lot of you to vote yes on this, because I think a lot of people in the audience may not know that there are people on City Council who are soft on ICE, and they would vote no on this, not because they don't think it goes far enough, but because they are too sympathetic for ICE. So I'm just going to move on past that and just say, I think this is a step in the right direction. Obviously needs to go further. But I just want to ask everyone in the room, have other cities across the country revoked their ICE permits? I don't know. Maybe one has.
No. Are we allowed to answer his question?
No.
Okay, so that was a
After testimony, I'm sure that anybody who would like to
Is it because they're
Sure, thanks.
Is it because they're literally pro-ICE? Two, Portland does not have an army. In the event that we started beef with the Nazi federal government, there might be some violent pushback. I don't know, just offering that. Three, the singling out of Councilor Murillo is really, really weird. You can get an Instagram beefs with her. I've had my fair share of internet beefs with electeds. But asking other councilors, some of whom were gonna vote no because they were soft on ICE, to censure her is just freaking nuts. Maria's worked harder than any other elected, city, state, county, federal, while enduring constant bullying from other councilors all year. And I just wanted to let you know, I appreciate the work being done. Four, there are right-wing landlords in this room, and I see them smirk and cheer when we gang up on the immigrant woman of color who was just trying to help tenants today. Lastly, I just want to ask you all to hate ICE as much as you hate the immigrant woman of color on Portland City Council. Thank you.
I haven't seen you down there. I haven't seen you protest.
You ain't been down there.
Eject me. Okay, calm
We're
down.
all summer, man. Come on.
Eject me. Eject me. Eject me. Eject me. Eject me.
disruptive content.
Eject me.
I'd like to ask our security team to
I'm
please.
ejected. Fuck you. We haven't seen you down there.
That's true. I've never seen this guy. Who is this guy?
It's okay. Throw me out. I'm thrown out. Fuck y'all.
Good evening. My name is Sam Diaz. I'm the Executive Director for 1,000 Friends of Oregon. For over 50 years, we've worked on policies and brought funding to Oregon for clean air and transit, housing, brownfield revitalization. We partner with Oregon farmers and farm workers and ranchers to protect their lives and livelihoods against data centers and warehouses and luxury homes for the rich. We've been the home for Anti-Displacement PDX Coalition in Portland for Everyone. And tonight, I just want to thank you for proposing a new tool to the fight, and that is zoning and permitting. It is not often that I get to come to these city council meetings across anywhere in the state to figure out how to be creative and really fight for people, especially those looking for a better life for themselves and for their families. We support the ordinance brought forward. The two-track approach is creative, it's surgical, narrowly tailored. It also reflects a standard approach for accounting for off-site impacts. And we need penalties for now, while the city proceeds with the enforcement. I do want to say, and I want to share the frustration that I'm hearing in the testimony. My experience working in Portland's land use planning and permitting is that if you're making pho, you'll get shut down if your neighbor complains about the smell. If you are building a warehouse, bringing thousands of truck trips into a neighborhood of black and brown folks and by schools that are 100% free and reduced lunch, you'll get a green light for your state. You'll get extension after extension to come into compliance with the permit conditions in city code. This is to the city bureau staff. It is not fair for the electeds to receive the heat on this because I know I work for the city. The city bureau staff need to stop enabling harm done to human beings in this place that we call home. Stop slow walking basic standard enforcement of bringing clear and objective standards for land use in a conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Beth Lilichek,
Make it look
Amy Staff, Aiden Summers, Janice Sweet, Catherine Wilson.
Looks like we may have something upstairs. Do we have anyone online?
No, I'll just read names one more time. Beth Lilichek, Amy Lestat, Aiden Summers, Janice Sweet, Catherine Wilson.
We have others on the list, why don't we call them as well? Welcome. Go right ahead.
Thanks. Hi, councilors. My name is Aiden Summers. I'm resident of District 4. I'm also a volunteer registered lobbyist for the Portland chapter of the Democratic Socialist of America. I had a lot of things that I thought I was going to say tonight. I kind of rethought about things. I want to acknowledge the difficulty of this time and the complexity involved in trying to deal with ICE invading our city. And I know that the way that the system is set up affords you rare opportunities to be able to properly intervene in this. I think the impact fee is one of those areas where we can actually have some impact on federal forces being in our city. I think there are many other ways, as some folks have mentioned, mass agents know that those kind of laws are in the works, and I think those are really important as well. I agree with folks that have said that this is a first step in a continuing process. I want to emphasize that on the council, that this needs to be something that we continue chipping away at. And I appreciate this starting effort because, I acknowledge it's a lot. We need to keep going. And we and a whole lot of the rest of the city will be behind you, helping you work in this direction to help protect our neighbors. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Janice Sweet. I'm a resident in District 3. There is so much that we could talk about, including the lack of accountability or protection for the hundreds of immigrants and citizens kidnapped this month alone. But I will focus on the violence at the McAdam building. You say that there's not enough evidence. You already have the evidence, but here's a little bit more. I can share one of my personal experiences. Recently, I stood across the street from the McAdam building on the sidewalk, nowhere close to government property. Alongside some comrades, I was holding a banner and dancing. Let me make this really clear again, we were across the street. after they threw dozens of gas canisters at all of us there who are just standing up for our beloved neighbors, they aimed their guns directly at our banner. Shots fired. We were hit by at least 30 rubber bullets for holding a banner. The Welts, we didn't do anything to provoke this or on this kind of violence, obviously. The Welts made walking difficult. You already know what the gas does to everybody. And this is like an extremely mild example of the violence that DHS and ICE are enacting on passionate, peaceful, unarmed protesters, and of course, our beloved immigrants. It is baffling to me that your solution is to genuflect to capitalism and charge a fee. And you say the fee is an example for other cities in our nation. Why would you want to set a precedent that it's okay for the federal government to terrorize citizens as long as they pay a little bit more? Pennies out of their budget. Why would you want to make a path for more detention facilities to materialize in our cities? And this city is supposed to be a sanctuary city. And if this ordinance is truly a first step, then you need to make that clear and show us that you are working toward getting ICE the hell out of here. Do not glibly make it more expensive for DHS and ICE to use chemical warfare against your constituents. Make it impossible. Do more.
That's good. I have it plugged in.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't have a prepared speech. I'm not really a public speaker. I'm more of a public yeller. I also am a patient at OHSU, so I'd be getting gas anyways because I go to the OHSU United Cancer Center for some treatments. I don't have cancer, but I am on chemo. Homeland Security does not care about you if they know you're getting treatments like that. I mean, they know, and they beat you up anyways. I got beat up for supposedly littering. They put me in the emergency room. They're not securing the homeland or anything. That's not what Homeland Security does. ICE is not keeping anyone safe. I mean, I sat in vigil earlier this week with members of the clergy and neighbors of the church out in Gresham because ICE has been targeting people out there, arresting people right out in front of the church and also knocking on the doors of the church. It also is a bilingual church and a daycare there. That's not legal. They're not doing legal things. Everything I've witnessed out there is illegal. Even their contractors are doing illegal things like brandishing butcher knives and stuff like that. They're just sitting there. Anyways, I think you should all recuse yourselves for even proposing this to us. Like, we want you to revoke the ICE permit. We're not here to talk about fees and act like our lives are a drop in the bucket or it's okay to deport these people. So we just want you to revoke the permit. So you should just recuse yourselves, not just pick on Angelina Morello. Especially Dan Ryan, stuff about calling these socialist Nazis. Anyways, I don't mean to be rude because I actually voted for Angelina Morello and Tiffany Clowney.
We need you to wrap up.
Only because it's cold and flu season and we're in public.
And could you tell us your name so that we can make sure that...
My name is Amy.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
I'm for socialism.
Hi, my name is Catherine Vogel. I'm a resident in District 4. And I have been protesting against ICE in Portland since 2017, peacefully. And I've experienced a lot of violence from them. I stand peacefully with my sign and I speak from my heart. And they are very sensitive to that. They use violence to get at you for using your heart. And a lot of us are facing damage to our lives because of their sensitive retaliations to our peaceful protest.
And I want to say that a fee is not an answer to the beginnings of genocide in our own country. It is maybe a tool in the toolkit, okay, but this response allows for the continuation of authoritarian repression. It is a deep action that takes energy away from the actions that must be taken to 100% remove ICE from Portland. ICE and DHS are using this facility as a headquarters to expand their operations in the state and region. The fascist Trump administration is using Portland as a test and starting point for the implementation of their agenda to militarize our streets and take away our human and constitutional rights. The only way to stop ICE from killing people is to revoke the permit and ban ICE from operating in future facilities. A fee will not stop them. It makes space for more. You may not be trying to normalize genocide in Portland, but unfortunately, half measures and capitalist useless fees do exactly that. Last time, you took immediate unanimous action and we applauded you. Do not let that energy slow down by making moves that allow for authoritarian terror to continue working.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Beth Jilchek. I use them pronouns, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Unite Oregon. Unite Oregon is a statewide organization led by people of color, immigrants and refugees, rural communities, and individuals experiencing poverty. We work across Oregon to build a unified intercultural movement for justice, and we are proud to represent our robust membership base in Portland here today. I want to take a moment to be clear, and I just lost my place, so that's great. I want to take a moment to be clear and be put on the record. Unite Oregon opposes ICE and all the harm that they've caused to families not only in Portland, but across the entire nation. As an organization led by immigrants and refugees, we are incredibly concerned with and adamantly oppose the abductions of community members without any cause, let alone just cause and due process. While we'd love to see the abolishment of ICE, we also recognize the importance of making change within the systems as they exist. We support this ordinance because it provides a vital opportunity to hold detention facilities accountable for the harm they inflict on our communities, rather than placing the burden on Portland taxpayers. Currently, we have witnessed the detrimental environmental and health impacts caused by detention centers. For instance, Portland residents near the ICE facilities have reported long-lasting health issues due to the excessive use of tear gas, which even led to the relocation of an elementary school for the safety of its students. While Unite Oregon advocates for changes in the tactics employed by police and federal agents against protesters, we also believe it is crucial to hold the agencies responsible for this harm now. At Unite Oregon, we examine all policies through the lens of our guiding principles, which include environmental justice, housing justice, economic justice, and reimagining community safety. This ordinance aligns with our vision of creating a more just and equitable Oregon. We must hold those who inflict harm on our neighbors and our broader community accountable. This unique burden that the detention facilities impose on Portlanders, including costs related to police overtime, environmental cleanup, and public health services, should not be borne by the very people they are infected. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our last testifier is AJ Wojcinski.
Buckeyes.
Additional testifier online.
No. Is AJ Wojcinski here?
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we now move into discussion. This is an ordinance, not on emergency, so we'll be considering any amendments and completing discussion today. Councilor Crayola Lynn.
I want to voice my support of Councilor Murillo and Councilor Green's detention fee ordinance. I think this is an important first step, many more needed, as many members of the community talked about. And sometimes we do have to throw sand in the gears of systems, and I think this ordinance does exactly that, creating some sort of accountability. I would like to name that Councilor Murillo, as an immigrant, often bears the brunt of the criticism simply for showing up and doing the work. And a reminder that Councilor Green is also a co-sponsor of this ordinance. I love you, Mitch, and honestly, it's not lost on me that your co-sponsor and the treatment of the woman of color up here is very different from how you're treated. This ordinance is about more than any one person. It's about coming up with as many different tools as possible that, and honestly, if this is passed, it could help pave the way for other cities in our state to be thinking about ways to throw sand in the gears. So I look forward to voting yes on this detention facility impact fee.
Thank you, Councilor. And colleagues, we did have one additional person come down for public testimony. I apologize. Please go right ahead.
All right, thank you. I wasn't originally going to speak, and I'm speaking as someone who wants the ICE permit revoked. I understand that the ordinance presented today is a single tool that does not go far enough, and we should use every tool at our disposal. If one applies pressure to the landlord, then good. I also understand that revoking the ICE permit is a win, not if, but is ongoing. And if it feels like your constituents in this room do not understand, I want to caution against blaming us for not understanding. Respectfully, if it feels, that's because the messaging on your end is not good enough and there is a communication breakdown somewhere. The building owner had until October 17th to hand over information regarding the investigation so y'all can move to vote on revoking the ICE permit. However, his lawyers pushed that back to December 1st. The reason revoking the ICE permit isn't happening today is currently because of the landlord and their lawyers. And I want to ask how many in this room knew that. For those sitting in this room, revoking the ICE permit is still ongoing. We don't have the luxuries to act outside the system. However, this tool applies pressure to the landlord. And we have to wonder why people are pointing all the anger at y'all and not at the landlord and the lawyer. I haven't heard a single person blame.
You're elected officials.
Also, that is true. You guys do have responsibility, but I want to push that blame. The responsibility for the communication breakdown is on our elected officials for that. There is a communication breakdown here that needs to be addressed. When, not if, they go to vote on revoking the permit, and they don't have the votes to revoke because those who want it revoked successfully hinder our access to power, you will become partially responsible for ICE's destruction and the failure of our movement.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to everyone who testified for coming and sharing your views. Even if you're not standing up against ICE at the risk of your own safety at the cabin facility up in Tacoma or around the country. I have a couple questions for City Administrator Jordan. And I'm going to ask the Council President for a little latitude in asking these questions as it relates to how relevant they are to this ordinance, because I do think they relate to the testimony here and help in ensuring that it's not disruptive, because at least people can hear an answer to their questions that were raised in the testimony. So I have 3 or 4. The first is, can you please give an update as you see it on the permit notification process, where it's at right now and what the deadlines are coming up?
I don't know that I can quote you exact dates, Councilor, but I do know that the property and their attorneys did ask for an extension of time to get data, and it was granted ostensibly because of the federal shutdown and they were having difficulty getting the data they were looking for. So
I'm not as my paper.
I don't know the exact date that clock runs out and keep the process moving, but it is still moving. So that's where we are right now. I don't know if anyone is here that actually knows the dates.
Sure, I might ask for anything you don't know here to be in the next month report if possible.
Yeah.
But could you just clarify, who granted that extension?
I think the staff, based on it's an administrative process, and I think the staff granted the extension.
Okay, so you're actually reading into the next question. Can you tell me, you're in a government that separates power between the mayor and council, whose responsibility it is, as of right now, to make a formal decision about whether or not to revoke the permit? Is it the administration or is it the city council?
Right now, it's the administration.
Thank you. And can you also, my last question on this subject is, when is the mayor's next public engagement where it would be relevant for a community member to bring up ICE?
I don't know the answer to that question.
We'll make one.
Would you be willing to update us on that in the next city administrator's report?
Certainly.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple questions to clarify, and I do appreciate the amount of work that has gone in from a technical perspective on this. I think these are actually related to some points that are going to be raised in the amendment, so I might wait on, if it's appropriate to wait on it until the amendment's moved, I'm happy to do that. But I would like to, actually, I will wait on that until the amendment's moved formally. But I will also note that we heard testimony on a different item in the technical adjustment ordinance piece. There was an amendment that related to Prosper Portland, and a plaintiff in a lawsuit settlement asked for an extension on their ability to choose from properties they won in the settlement, and was not to date granted that extension. So it's troubling to me when subjective authority is exercised to extend some deadlines for property owners and not for plaintiffs who I will note are Black Portlanders displaced by a planned expansion of Legacy that didn't end up happening. And I'll wait on the rest until the amendment is moved. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor, I received a note from a staff person in the administration that the deadline is December 1st. You put that on the record.
Thank you, and I believe the testifier got it right, so thank you for that.
Yep. Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Madam President. This goes to Councilor Murillo. Do we have a schedule of fees that go along with this legislation?
Yeah, I'd like to invite my policy advisor, Susie Joyster, to come back up. You will also note that in the detention facility fee FAQ that we created that is also posted online, questions 8 and 9 talk about the fees and how they will be used in case you would like to reference them. But Susie?
Yeah, that's correct. So Susie Joyster again for the record. We'll just echo what the councilor indicated. So it's in the FAQ, and this is something that I outlined a little bit during the presentation, but just to elaborate on that point a little bit, it is pretty typical for the development of a fee to have the legislative body outline the broad mandate that we're looking to have the administration then execute. So executive legislative authority division. So the administration would be tasked with developing that fee schedule consistent with their experience and expertise in this space, and then they would likely come back to council with that. The ordinance requires a report.
That was the question. You don't have a schedule of fees.
Yeah, that's correct.
So the question is no.
Yeah.
And so the answer is that is going to have to come back as a matter of process. And that's generally how it's done. And administrative fees are done afterwards.
Yes, that's correct. So via the administrative rulemaking process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, this does meet many things to administrative rule. If you have questions about the specific fees, we might turn to the administration, though I'm guessing they haven't started that process yet.
They probably won't start until this is passed.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Councilor, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Green?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the administrative, the fee structure aspect of this and why the ordinance was designed in such a way to delegate that to administrative rulemaking. It's very standard practice in devising fees and tax structures, although this is a fee that seek to cure the externality, which is what is under consideration here, to engage in a fairly robust benefit cost analysis. The EPA publishes a manual called Guidelines for Preparing Economic Analysis, latest editions, the 3rd edition, and it outlines what the standard practices are for devising that fee. And so that's something that you don't want to write into an ordinance and a code, because that needs to be flexible based upon the data as it emerges, so we can look at the actual cost of the community, such as the $100,000 that Grays Landing building has incurred already. That's just one example. So that's why it was devised in this way. I also want to say more broadly that, if we're going to be able to pass laws that protect Portlanders and stand up against the federal government, or any actor that tries to threaten our citizens. We need those laws to have rigor behind them and be able to stand up to legal challenges. And so this is a really good ordinance that builds upon is the first step to building a suite and array of rock-solid legislation that won't just be simply overturned. It's really important to do that. It's not the only tool in the toolkit. I know that I have colleagues who are working on other issues, like Councilor Canal. You've got a range of things, like a mask ban and a sort of a tear gas ban. I won't speak for you, but there is stuff in the hopper. This is one piece to basically say, look, Portlanders are incurring this right now. The federal government is going to do what it's going to do. We shouldn't let them do it for free. We need to create a fee schedule that recovers some costs, so that way when community members approach the city and say, can you make us whole? Can you do something about paying for the environmental remediation costs that I've incurred in Grand High School? We have a pot of money there to pay those costs. Right now we do not. So that's the spirit behind this. I readily admit and agree with all the testimony that says this does not solve the issue. Of course not. But this is not a mutually exclusive proposition. We are creating laws to build a stronger footing for our city. So that's what we're for it. That's why my staff put a lot of effort into the economic aspects of this, particularly with Union, which everyone now knows that we're ad nauseum spirit behind this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ryan.
Madam President, I think this would be a question for either the attorney or for you, Michael Jordan. I've been an advocate for behavioral health treatment centers for most of my life.
Ice out of Portland!
As a person who also opened up Safe Rest Villages, who have statistically moved more people from chronic homelessness to stability, especially that access to recovery services in the workforce. And as a person who's advocated for the transition from discipline free and independent society, I just want to make certain that those facilities are not further scrutinized and rejected by society because this ordinance would apply to them. As such, are these much needed facilities, will they survive the stigma that saves lives, or are they exempted from this ordinance as it's written? I just want to make sure we don't have any unintended consequences with this ordinance. And I couldn't tell from the Q&A.
City Administrator Jordan, do you want us to look under number 2 if you need to reference it? Do you want us to look to the Attorney City Administrator, or do you want to take that? I know this was a point of discussion as this was being drafted.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. To your question, and I would certainly defer to the attorneys if I get this wrong, but the definition under our land use code of detention facility would exclude any facility except ones that have policing officers there that are detaining people in the facility for whatever reason. That may be probation, it may be another use, but I would say other than mental health facilities, which folks have been through the judicial system put into for criminal reasons. Other than that, I'm not aware of a mental health facility that would qualify under our definition.
And the county's deflection center, which then they're going to be opening up a Silvergreen Center where some people will have warrants.
The deflection center, I would say, is not, definitely not. I don't know about future facilities that the county would open.
I hope between the first and the second reading, we just need to certain, I don't think anyone will want that to happen. I just don't want us to pass this and then come back and realize that we pass something that made it even more difficult to putting these much needed facilities on Parliament.
Council President, may I respond?
Yeah, and Councilor Ryan, I want to turn to the carrier on this as well, because this was a question that was specifically addressed in the second draft.
Yes, and if you look at the FAQ, question number 2 in the FAQ talks about how we define a detention facility. So we use Title 33 of Portland Zoning Code, and it already has boundaries and exclusions for things like group living, residential treatment, psychiatric care, alcohol or drug treatment programs, halfway houses, etc. Those are not considered detention facilities. So this is very narrowly tailored and is defined under existing codes like Title 33. And I
I believe, Suzie, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, just one additional thing on this, so in case it's helpful, we have a list of all the facilities that are currently classified as detention facilities under Title 33, and none of the facilities that you spoke to are on that list. And it's all the facilities.
Having had to do that hard work and taking all those headwinds and punches, I just want to be certain that we're not getting this here. And so I see what's written here, and I will continue to make certain that we're clear about that as we go to the second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Murillo?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak a bit to this ordinance because I agree with the testimony that this doesn't go far enough, and I don't think I've ever said that this, I think even in the video that I just posted, I talked about the fact that we have to throw sand in the gears wherever we can and however we can. That doesn't mean that one policy is going to resolve the way that the federal government with billions of dollars is going to terrorize our immigrant neighbors, myself included, by the way. And so what we can do at the local level is sometimes as unsexy and unfun as a fee. Sometimes we have to find creative ways to deter the harms that happen in our communities. And I think other folks have outlined this already, but the permitting process, it has not come back to council yet for a vote.
Make a wall.
And I'm gonna make it very, very clear for the record because of some of the things that were said here. I have not given a final opinion either way on whether or not we should revoke the ICE permit. We as councilors are not allowed to have an opinion on that until we receive all of the evidence because it's a land use decision. And if we make up our minds beforehand, we cannot make a decision. And I think it's really important that all of us remain unbiased until it officially comes back to us so that we can make that decision, regardless of personal feelings about it.
Cowardly. What more do you need? Cowardly.
We need it to come back to council from the permitting department. It's not back to us
Stop
yet.
letting him push the date back.
We have within our responsibilities as a council, we can do fees, we can do deterrence, we can do other creative things to ensure that people who are trying to profit off of suffering in our communities, that there is a cost offset to that. And I want to point out that this ordinance, the nuisance aspect of it, which I believe is listed in question 9, means that it does apply to any facility that is currently operating right now. I believe Susie made that very clear in her presentation, but it sees like folks didn't hear that. So any harms that are currently being done, any harms that are currently being done by an open building right now, for example, like the McAdam facility, they would have to pay the nuisance fees too. And part of those fees are to go to people who are harmed, who are living in the buildings nearby, who are getting tear gassed, whose kids are suffering.
And the rest of the cops.
Yeah, I gotta make
So
that sweet money back, right?
Conduct in the room is disrupting the meeting. This is a warning that if there is continued disruption, you will be ejected.
Early might get ejected.
I also need folks to understand that I have colleagues who have said that they are ready to go back to business as usual and to stop doing anything with regards to immigration because this is a federal issue. And so my job as a counselor is to negotiate with the values and the votes that I have here at the dais. And sometimes that doesn't get me the perfect policy that I would like. Sometimes it means that I have to work within the confines of who I'm working with. So I would hope that we would put pressure on those folks to do a little bit more. But I'm ready to take any more
Story, I might be there.
Councilor
Councilor Avalos, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Councilor Murillo, for bringing this forward. I just want to be clear about what this detention impact fee is designed to do. This isn't a revenue tool, it is a deterrence tool. Just like mandatory relocation fees made it an expensive business decision to displace tenants, this fee makes it an expensive business decision to operate or lease space to detention facilities that cause harm in our communities. And without a strong deterrent, our city becomes vulnerable to more facilities trying to open or relocate here. If a current lease ends or is revoked, operators will be looking for new sites, and this policy makes Portland a bad business environment for that. Landlords and operators still have choices, but the city is no longer absorbing the social costs of those choices. And if someone wants to run or host a detention facility, that decision will come with a real financial consequence. This aligns our market incentives with our community values, and it protects Portlanders before harm happens. And it ensures that we're not an easy target for future facilities. So again, thank you so much for bringing this forward and having this be an important part of the many different steps that we need to take to protect our communities. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Canal.
Thank you, Madam President. I forgot to mention earlier, I agree with that last testifier. I don't think we've communicated effectively enough about this as elected officials. I also agree it doesn't solve the problem fully. I think the way I've been evaluating this particular proposal is, does this move us forward even a little? Or does it hold the line as is, or even move us backward? And I know that I did hear several testifiers say that in your view, you think it moves things backwards. And so I want to ask a couple of questions to help understand that better. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I trust the intent from the co-sponsors. I think I align very significantly with the way that Councilor Avalos just described it. But I also want to understand one thing that was just, yelled out, as well as an earlier question in the testimony. So can we speak to both, because it's in, I think, changes in the amendment, where the money goes? I think that there is a fund established that a potential future amendment might remove a reference to. And I would just love to understand what the intended way that the money will be collected and stored is before distribution.
Oh, Tiffany's out of the bathroom now.
Note that as we speak to this, our intent certainly matters. But we also need to make sure that we're balancing what our intent is and what our actual direction is. So I would love to hear from the carriers about intent. We may want to see if the city administrator wants to add anything about conversations they've had as well.
So in working with the administration, our policy originally had a specific fund that these dollars would go towards. And then when we worked with City Administrator Jordan and some of the other folks that would have to implement this, they told us that there's basically a layer of bureaucracy when you create a specific fund that would increase the cost of implementation and just make it a lot more complicated and difficult to do. And so their recommendation was that it essentially just go into the general fund to be used for these things so that we don't have to make it a more difficult and bureaucratic process to get it implemented. There are also concerns that if there is a specific fund that it could potentially be targeted by the federal government in different ways. So this was a better alternative.
And in that scenario, would this be restricted in the way that, for example, general transportation dollars are, where we know that we can only spend it on certain things from a legal perspective? Or how is it guaranteed that it goes towards the things we're talking about operationally?
Sure, thank you. First of all, Councilor Murray was correct. We did talk about the cost of administering a fund within our structure. However, we can do things like accounts within funds to segregate revenues and expenditures. And administrative rules, we haven't designed administrative rules for this yet, but I would envision, given the way this is structured and given the fact that the purpose of the fee is not only to cover the costs that the city incurs in enforcement, but also to distribute money to others that are impacted by the activity around the facility. To do that, we are going to have to be fairly specific in the administrative rules about how these funds are collected and how they're dispersed and what are the rules for doing that. So we're going to have to keep pretty close track of all of these funds to be able to accomplish the intent of the language as I see it right now. I don't know.
There is a video of 10 officers dragging a woman across the street at ICE.
I'm sorry, I'm sure this is important information, but the conduct is disrupting the meeting as we are trying to
like
move
this
forward.
about fees,
If you continue to
when there's an
disrupt, you
actual
will be ejected
person
from the
being
meeting.
ripped out. Like, when does it become enough is
To
enough? Like,
eject
did you
this
see this
individual
video?
from the meeting who's standing up so that we can
10
continue
people,
our work.
10 huge cops.
To our security.
And we're still talking about, like, where do the fees go? Like 10 cops. come on, do something, please. Like, this is, like, this just happened 10 hours ago.
These are being sent to the fucking cops so they can continue to harass protesters and get the ICE facility.
Conduct is continuing to disrupt the meeting.
What about that? No collaboration, we all speak together, right? And speak the meeting, and speak the
Front row, and I'm going to ask that our team eject the person yelling in the front row from the meeting.
This is what happens when you don't pay attention to your community. Tiffany's eating. Tiffany's eating. You guys aren't paying attention when the community is calling to you. I hope your food was good, Tiffany.
Oh, don't shame people for eating. That's not right.
This isn't the time. This is not the time.
These are structured and the way that you disperse. Using an account and being able to have administrators specific about the criteria for how the fee is constructed and the disbursement who would be eligible to get the fee, get proceeds from fees. That will all have to be administered.
So that's a little, I share a concern that I'm hearing, which is that you have administrative expenses and overtime in addition to a lot of other things that might involve paying money out to nearby residents, to community members, non-city entities, right? But the question I have relates to the concern that's being raised about police officers and overtime there, because you've seen that I think roughly $800,000 of overtime was spent in the month of June alone at the ICE facility. And that could drain a fund pretty significantly before there's any money left to go to outside individuals theoretically, right? So, I don't want to get too deep into the question of how do we ensure that, we did pass a budget note to try and limit the amount of overtime that was being spent on protest response.
We're talking about starving people in death camps. Yes.
But I do want to understand how that distribution would be determined. And I want to understand how a person who maybe I don't have enough insight into administrative rules. I can't imagine that the folks who are not elected officials, in terms of how they're developed, I can't, how would we be certain, and how would someone who has maybe less familiarity be certain that there would be a distribution of the funds that aligns with the sort of underlying principle that the people who are harmed are getting it, not the people who are during overtime suppressing protests?
Yep, thank you. There you go.
Counselor, fair question. I don't believe, I understand the intent of the ordinance as it is presented. At least in my view, the intent of balancing first between qualifying expenses, both internal and external, isn't exactly clear in this. And we would probably need to get better clarity on that if in fact those expenses were going to be prioritized within the rule.
Thanks, and I know the co-sponsor's intent here, but I want to make sure I'm not just asking this or answer my question, because I do think it's fair for folks to ask that.
Thank you.
Do you have a way to prevent ICE from reimbursing?
This is a moment for discussion amongst
Oh, she's squinting.
For reimbursing a landlord for the
The
cost?
conduct is disrupting the meeting.
Look at her tattling.
Does this not just let the landlords play the middleman
This is
between
your-
ICE and the police?
This is your
letting
warning
them,
that you will face ejection if you continue disrupting.
letting them
the
pay
meeting.
for the police to protect them.
There's an individual in the back who's still interrupting the meeting wearing a red shirt, I believe.
I'll go. Fuck y'all!
Yeah, Counselor, the purpose in section 5.8.010 establishes that the chapter is to recover the full public costs of the detention facility fee. Now, while we are delegating to the administrator to engage in the rulemaking process, the intent is clear that it is to establish the full public cost. So there's no finite fund. So if we figure out a situation, or that's the intent to the administrator, if we find a situation where like there's a surge in police overtime, for instance, and that's $1 million, The expectation in the ordinance is to say that's the basis of recovering the costs. And it's backward looking because you have to kind of look at the basis of evidence to reestablish or recalibrate your framework. But the city has ample reserves to cover any sort of periodic cash flow issue. So that's the intention of legislation. And as the city administrator said, it's not just the direct cost to the city, but rather the broader social costs, which is why it's moving measure.
So that makes sense for addressing the fund could be drained concern. And I think what you're also saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the middle sentence here of the first part basically means we'd be prioritizing the external stakeholders.
Yes.
So the money would first go to neighbors, and only then be prioritizing. Is that accurate?
That's the example.
Okay, well, I'll ask the question that the person asked, how do we know from this, and I'm sure you've thought this through, how do we know that this doesn't create a situation where a landlord raises the rent by the amount of the fee, and ICE then pays that, or a detention facility operator pays that to them? That money is then collected, put into a fund, and a portion of it, not all of it, you addressed that part, used to subsidize maybe the discretionary actions of the administration, or the local administration, as it relates to police overtime. I think that's a fair question to raise, maybe not the method.
And if we're paying overtime, when are they gonna do
This is a
something?
disruption of the meeting, council discussion.
Look how happy Tiffany looks. Look how happy Tiffany looks.
Councilor Canal,
She's
this
so
ordinance
happy.
is not designed to absolve us of broader oversight. Okay, so if we do not want to subsidize the actions of the landlord without the police department, we need to have hearings in caps. That it's inappropriate to do so. And we need to use our broader budget authority and provide legislation that says we want stricter boundaries. This legislation is designed very specifically to recover the social costs of the presence of the facility. To stop ICE, you need a united front of working class people, you need general strikes, you need all that. Because that is the issue we're facing. This ordinance can't possibly do all of that.
But they can show the community they care.
I think I agree with that last piece, and I appreciate the responses to the questions. I think as I'm looking through this, sometimes you read code through the lens that you have, in this case, the lens that you have, and of course it would be read a certain way. And I think one of the great things about testimonies is that not a lot of people read this when you don't have that same context or that same experiences that I do, but have their own experiences that are helpful for that interpretation. So I'm kind of trying to incorporate what I'm hearing through how we read this, and I think the rest will probably be through the context of the amendment conversation, because I am a little concerned about how that tweaks it a little bit, but I think we can talk about it if and when that is moved.
Can I respond a little bit? So you made a comment about how landlords could technically just increase the cost of rent to offset the fee. And that is frankly how, unfortunately, landlords operate in many ways. And the political reality is that ICE has billions of dollars right now. The federal administration has given them billions of dollars. And we can't legislate how people have those contracts privately. What we can do is to try to address the harm that happens through, again, one small piece of chipping away at the machine that is not going to stop the entire machine. That's the reality of it. Money can be tracked such that PPP could only be reimbursed for overtime related to actions that are taken at the facility where the fees are applied. And that's part of the administrative rulemaking that we're going to need to see. I think something that we've been advised as council over and over again is that we're the budget authority, we make the big oversight decisions, and then we're going to have to work continuously with the administration for them to get those details out. But in my opinion, and I'll state it for the record since it sounds like that's what you're asking, the top priority should be the people who are first impacted by these issues. So like folks living in the surrounding buildings that are getting tear gassed, people who are being frankly, Portlanders all who are being affected by tear gas entering our waterways and the environmental impacts of that, that should be the top priority.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm gonna most appreciate it.
Okay. Councilor Rodeo?
Yeah, as long as folks don't have any other hands in the queue, I'd like to move the amendment forward.
Second. Colleagues, is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilor Knoll?
Thank you. Can we hear from the carrier first, or the proposal of the copy amendment?
The presentation previously was specifically about the amendment, so we actually have heard extensively about it.
Okay. I want to first say I appreciate most of this. I think I don't really have questions on the idea of using the definition that's already in code, clarifying the secure detention facility, annual review, anything like that. The question I have was specifically, I had two. One, you've, I think, answered it as it relates to the fund. But I wanted to ask about the appeals process that was brought up in here and how you anticipated that going and whether or not because I believe the question's been raised about the process for appeals already being a little bit more permissive than, not a little bit, a lot more permissive than maybe is intentional or intended.
So would you like to address that?
Sorry, are you asking about appeals within the permitting department?
There's a lot.
No.
I don't know the number though.
It's 5.80.050. Any private property owner aggrieved by determination under this chapter may appeal the determination of the code hearings officer provided by Portland City Code 2210.
Would you like the administration to address the need for that?
Yeah.
The Administrator Jordan, is that something that you can address?
Well, the administrative decisions we make that allow citizens or property owners that we have made an administrative decision about regarding either the imposition of a fee or a penalty for their activity, to be able to appeal that to the hearings officer. And so that's in our code, the section that's cited, 2210, is a fairly standard process among many bureaus that make administrative decisions, and that decision needs to have an appeal process.
Thank you. I appreciate the work you did on this and as well.
Thank you, Councilor. Colleagues, I just want to note my appreciation for the definition change. I shared some of the questions that Councilor Ryan raised previously at this meeting, and the change in definition leaves me assured that this is actually focused on the type of detention facility that has public safety officers present, and not the types of residential facilities that I was concerned might otherwise inadvertently be touched. Councilor Rodeo?
Yeah, thank you, Council President, for bringing that up to our attention early on, so that we could make sure that was addressed, because that definitely is not the intention of this legislation. I do want to point out to folks that anything that implicates these facilities will be sued. And much like regular land use process, appeals occur, and except that the regular land use process is also very extensively appealed, which is why a process like permit revocation can sit in the courts for years. Like, for example, even if we were to revoke the ICE permit, it would likely be appealed again by the federal government and then go to DEQ, and then that could take years later. So while I'm just outlining the process, I don't like bureaucracy either. That's just how it works. But I think that while
the system though,
while we are handling that, people are still facing the harm every single day that's being done at these detention facilities. And so this policy has to address those harms right now. That's the political reality that we live in. And so this appeals process would be a lot faster than anything else that we're seeing right now. And that's why this is necessary.
Thank you, Counselor. Colleagues, seeing no one else in the queue for debate on the amendment, Keelan, can you please call the roll?
Clark. Green.
Yes.
Avalos.
We can't get away from him.
Dunphy.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Wrong.
Thank you for all the clarity. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Cleone.
Yes.
Mario.
Aye.
Hurley.
Aye.
Amendment is approved with 9 yes votes.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame!
Shame! These are disruptions to the meeting. This is a warning.
$100,000, and I would really like it to be addressed how you're going to make sure it makes it into the hands of people who are actually affected by this. Shame on all of you for voting for this performative measure. We're going to keep coming back until that performance is revoked. We know that you have the ability to change the law. No more excuses. No more excuses. Shut it down.
Revoke the permit.
Revoke the permit.
Revoke the permit.
Go upstairs in the white sweatshirts.
Revoke the
permit. Ice out of Portland. Ice out of Portland. Ice out of Portland.
Or just Tiffany in general, honestly.
Revoke the permit.
Revoke the permit.
Shame on you.
Tiffany looks so proud.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Get ice out of Portland.
Ice out of Portland! Ice out of Portland! Ice out of Portland! Ice out of Portland! Ice out of Portland!
Ice out of Portland.
Colleagues, we are now in discussion over the amended version of this ordinance, which includes Modio 1 and the changes contained therein. Is there any discussion on the amended version?
Your request for information. Can you clarify what just got voted on for people might not?
We just voted to add an amendment to the underlying ordinance. It's posted.
Chuggins, I was just looking around. There's only one in here now.
The amendment is what was presented on previously, but because that language was filed after the posting deadline, we needed to officially adopt it in as an amendment, rather than it being the underlying that was posted, even though the intent by the carriers, I believe, was to have us support this amended version.
Great. And so just to clarify, the underlying thing that we've been talking about, the detention facility fee ordinance as a whole is not voted on.
Correct. Okay. We are at just over 3 hours, colleagues, and we do need to give our staff a quick break. So before we have any discussion, further discussion on the underlying and vote and talk about the additional item here, I want to give us, hesitate to do this because I know that there are folks who may be waiting to catch us on the way out, but I want to give us a 10-minute break just to ensure that we're respectful of our staff's time, and then we'll be back here to take our final actions this evening. We will be back in at 9:19.
That's all you guys done. You've taken breaks. You've taken so many breaks. You haven't paid attention to your community one time. Tiffany's taken a bunch of breaks.
Teacher Tiffany is like one of the best. She's
Hold on one sec.
I guess Marilla is not allowed to have an opinion about ICE, otherwise she can't vote on revoking the permit. And that is weird to me because politicians have opinions all the fucking time and make votes anyway. Like, that's all politics is your opinion, isn't it? So I don't understand.
Yeah, there you go.
Their scream had a positive. But they didn't shut it down in time. Yeah, I mean, we heard Tom. Yeah, exactly. Shame on you! Revolt the vermin! Revolt the vermin! I sat a Portland! I sat a Portland! Shame on you! Shame on you! I sat a Portland! I sat a Portland! All cops are bastards! 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 Universal blah 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 blah.
She went silent after I was like, she was like, it's gonna give.
Not you two are using it.
No, next time. Understood. And every time you were texting. You're trying to go home. Oh, all the fucking DSA. He wasn't answering that shit. He just re-asked these questions. Pretty much. Yeah, he was like,
You know the side they sit on?
Hey, thank you for the roses, everybody.
City Hall. He seemed like he held everybody's. Yes, I was clocking that. he seems to be a very good, like, distill. He was like, yes, we have a communication problem here. This, like, obvious.
He gave me a little bit of hope because I was like, at least he's recognizing.
Precisely. I felt encouraged by his involvement.
Yeah.
And a little bit.
Yeah.
And I understand what they're trying to do because we all work in bureaucracy, regardless of if we're working in, like, federal or city or your own little, like, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, they weren't holding space in the way that
they need to.
Well, even before I had walked out, they were already starting to do that. Like, Marilla had moved up her monitor.
Yeah.
And it was because she was fixing her lipstick or something.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening?
They're
down
disengaged. They're not connected to their community, and it's so dangerous. Like,
starting out with Dan Ryan, that was. I mean, I hate to bring
right
it
out of
back
the
to
gate.
that, but yes, it did feel like it. Like that's like something. I was like, what is this?
It set the tone. I'm like,
drama.
I was like, this isn't my town. Somebody fill me in. What is?
I had no idea either.
Okay.
Now we have a new government. He's part of the old.
Okay.
Gotcha. I mean, that's
what a mess.
I haven't been engaged yet.
Right. I haven't
to be
either.
quite honest. How do you confuse and not know?
Sorry, friends. I'm gonna look you.
Whatever. Blah.
Millie, if you're gonna say something up there, make sure to hear it. Smiles. I didn't have any time. I self-ejected.
Instead of just like,
oh, oops. I thought I was
hey,
saying
James. No, you did not.
Yeah, that's frustrated. It's your civic duty to hold your city officials accountable. You guys see this? Like, it's your civic duty, and your city only has a couple minutes of your time, and they should be present for you. They should hold space for you. No, Cassie, I left. I decided to eject. I got up and left. Okay, I'm gonna take the train. Unbelievable. You could see when the song entered my brain and my body remembered what happened. I got real turned. Okay, we're not gonna do that again. Cindy, thank you. I'll come